I found our marriage was a sham after my wife secretly sold our house for $350, $0, then she sued me for half the property. And now I'm discovering she's been stealing from me for years, all while claiming she's the victim in our vicious divorce battle. I never saw it coming. Honestly, who does? One day everything seemed normal. My wife, Lisa, was her usual bitchy self, throwing tantrums over petty stuff, but I just chalked it up to her being difficult. Little did I know that behind her sharp tongue and fake smiles, she was planning something far worse. The first real sign was when I started noticing odd things with the house. Things I took for granted, like her being overly secretive about her phone, deleting texts and avoiding my questions. But I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe she was just stressed or hiding something innocent. Then came the day I came home early from work. I usually work late, but that night I decided to surprise her. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw her car parked at a strange angle, not the usual spot. My gut told me something was off. I tiptoed inside to find the house eerily silent. No TV, no noise, just an unsettling quiet. I checked the bedroom first, and there she was, lying on the bed, texting on her phone with a smirk on her face. I could see the glow of the screen from the doorway. I stepped closer and her eyes shot up. She quickly hid the phone under the pillow, her face flickering with guilt. I asked who she was texting, and she claimed it was just her sister, that she was talking about some stupid girl stuff. I didn't buy it. Something felt wrong. I demanded to see her phone, and she snapped at me, saying I was being paranoid. It's nothing, just stupid girl stuff, you're overreacting. But I knew better. Her hands trembled and her eyes darted around like she was hiding something. Over the next few days, I started noticing more signs. She was secretive about money, hiding receipts and lying about where she was going. She'd leave her phone around and I'd catch her deleting messages. I found a strange number in her call log I didn't recognize. When I confronted her, trying to keep my voice steady, she played the victim, saying I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of nonsense. She called me insecure and manipulative, all while I was quietly falling apart inside. Then the bigger shock hit me. I found out she had secretly sold our house, our family home, without telling me. She cashed out for $350, $0, claiming she needed the money for something urgent. She then filed a lawsuit to claim half of the property, even though I had no idea she was planning to do any of this. I felt like my world was crumbling. The house I had worked so hard to pay off, the place I thought was our future, was gone in a blink, sold behind my back. And the worst part, I was starting to connect the dots about her stealing from me for years. Small amounts here and there, hidden in accounts I didn't even know existed. She always claimed she was the victim, poor Lisa, the wronged wife, while secretly siphoning off money, cheating on me with some guy she met at the gym. I couldn't believe I'd been blind for so long. Every day I felt more betrayed, more disgusted. I kept asking myself how I could have missed all of it, how I was so stupid to trust her. That's when I realized I was in a war I didn't even know I was fighting. She was a master manipulator and I was just her mark. The more I uncovered, the more I understood that this wasn't just about infidelity or money. It was about her completely destroying everything we built. And I had to decide what to do next. But one thing was clear: I wasn't going down without a fight. After discovering she had sold the house, my mind was spinning. I couldn't believe she'd gone behind my back like that, cashing out on everything we had built together without even telling me. When I confronted her about it, Lisa's reaction was almost laughable. She acted like she was the victim, as usual. She threw her hands up, said she needed the money, and that I was overreacting. I asked her why she hadn't told me, and she just shrugged like it was no big deal. That's when I started digging deeper. I knew I had to find out where that money went, how she managed to hide so much from me. I hired a private investigator, and what I uncovered was even worse. She had been secretly funneling money into a side account for years, small amounts at first, then larger sums. She'd been stealing from me, lying about everything, all while playing the victim, saying I was paranoid, accusing her of cheating when she was the one sneaking around. The pie also found out she'd been having an affair for months with some guy from her gym, a younger guy who she claimed she was just friends with. Yeah, right. The betrayal cut deep. I couldn't believe I'd been so stupid, so blind. I thought I knew her, I thought we had a real marriage, but it was all a sham. She was cheating, stealing, lying, every word out of her mouth was a lie. And now she was trying to turn everything around, framing herself as the victim. She'd cry about how hard her life was, how she was misunderstood, while secretly screwing around and robbing me blind. It was a sick game she played, and I was the fool who got played. One night, I decided I had enough. I sat her down, told her I knew everything. The affair, the money theft, the house sale, and that I was done. She looked at me with her usual icy stare, tried to deny everything, but the evidence was stacked against her. I told her I was filing for divorce and that I wanted her out of my life for good. She went ballistic, screaming, crying, calling me every name in the book, said I was controlling, insecure, and that I was ruining her life. But I didn't care. The betrayal was too much to forgive, and I knew I had to cut her loose. The divorce process was a nightmare. She hired a lawyer, and suddenly everything became a battlefield. She claimed I was abusive, that I was trying to cheat her out of her rights, even though she'd already stolen from me. She filed a counterclaim for emotional distress, trying to spin her cheating and theft as somehow my fault. I couldn't believe her audacity. Meanwhile, she kept lying, twisting facts, trying to paint herself as the victim. But I had proof, screenshots, bank statements, the Pies report. I knew I was fighting an uphill battle, but I was determined to come out on top. Throughout the chaos, I felt a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, heartbreak. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far. How did I miss all the signs? How did she manage to hide everything for so long? The worst part was that she still had the nerve to act innocent, to cry and whine about how unfair everything was to her. I realized she was a master manipulator, and I'd been her target all along. I started to see her for what she really was: a liar, a thief, a cheat. And I knew I had to put an end to it, no matter how much it hurt. In the end, I decided to fight back. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. I hired a good lawyer, took control of the situation, and made sure she wouldn't get away with any more lies or theft. I also started the process of rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy, trusting someone again, letting go of the pain, and trying to move past the betrayal. But I knew I had to do it. I had to reclaim what was mine and get rid of the toxic person who'd almost destroyed me. Looking back, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I can be strong even when everything's falling apart. That trust should never be taken for granted, and that sometimes people you think are your life partners are just playing a game. I also realized that revenge isn't always about getting even. It's about protecting yourself, standing up for what's right, and making sure the truth comes out. Lisa's lies and manipulations may have hurt me deeply, but I refuse to let her win. I'll rebuild, I'll move on, and I'll make sure she never does this to anyone else again. After the initial shock of everything settling in, I started to see how deep her lies went. The house sale, the theft, the affair. It was like peeling an onion, layer after layer of betrayal. I thought I knew her, but I was wrong. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how much she'd been manipulating me for years. She'd always played the victim, crying about how hard her life was, how misunderstood she was, while secretly screwing around and robbing me blind. The divorce process dragged on longer than I expected. Lisa was relentless, trying every trick in the book to delay things, to turn the tables. She claimed she was entitled to half the house, despite selling it behind my back, and that I owed her money she'd invested in the marriage. She even tried to sue me for emotional distress, spinning stories about how I was abusive and controlling. I had the evidence, but dealing with her constant lies was exhausting. Every time I thought I'd won a small victory, she'd come back with some new accusation or scheme. Meanwhile, I was trying to piece my life back together. I started seeing a therapist, not just to deal with the heartbreak, but also to process the rage and betrayal. I kept asking myself, how did I let it get this far? How did I miss all the signs? I was angry, yes, but also hurt. I'd given her everything: my trust, my love, my future, and she'd thrown it all away for some affair, some stolen money, some fake victimhood. The worst part was that she still had the nerve to lie, to deny everything, to act innocent. That icy stare, that fake smile, it made me want to scream. I also found out that she'd been stealing from me for years, not just with the house and the side account, but small things, cash from my wallet, bank withdrawals I never authorized. I had trusted her completely, and she'd been betraying me every step of the way. I felt like a fool. How could I not see it? How could I have been so blind? It was like I was living with a stranger all this time. The woman I thought I knew was just a facade, hiding a manipulative, selfish person who only cared about herself. At one point, I caught her in a blatant lie. She told me she was working late, but I found out she was at some guy's apartment having sex with him. I saw the messages, the photos, everything. That was the moment I knew I had to cut her out for good. I confronted her and she spun some story about how she was confused, how she still loved me, but I saw through it. Love. She was just using me, using my money, my trust, my patience. I realized I'd been a fool to think she was anything but a user. I decided I'd had enough. I filed for divorce, and this time I was serious. I wanted my peace, my money, my dignity back. I was tired of her lies, her manipulations, her games. I hired a better lawyer, one who knew how to handle these kinds of situations. I wanted her out of my life for good. The day she got served, she freaked out, yelling, crying, begging for another chance. But I knew better. No more chances. She'd already taken too much from me, and I wasn't going to let her do it again. The aftermath was brutal. She tried to guilt-trip me with tears and fake apologies, but I wasn't buying it. I knew her game now. I kept my distance, let the courts handle the rest. I cut off all communication, changed my phone number, and started rebuilding my life. The house was gone, the money stolen, the trust shattered, but I was still standing. I had to be. I realized that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to see the truth clearly. And the truth was, Lisa was a liar and a thief who didn't deserve my love or my loyalty. Now I'm just trying to move forward. It's not easy, and I know I'll carry scars from this experience, but I'm learning to trust myself again. I've learned that you can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and rebuilding from nothing. I still get angry when I think about all the years I wasted, but I also feel a strange sense of relief, like I finally see the real person she was all along. And I know I'll be okay, even if it takes time. The more I reflected on everything, the more I realized how deeply Lisa had manipulated me, how she'd used my trust as a weapon against me. It's one thing to find out about an affair, but to discover she'd been stealing from me all along. That was a different level of betrayal. I started to question everything, every moment, every word, every promise she ever made. How could I have missed the signs? How did she manage to keep this charade going for so many years? The more I dug, the more I found out about her lies, her schemes, her manipulations. The court battles dragged on for months. She was relentless, trying to drag out the process, claiming she needed more time to gather evidence to prove I was abusive, or that I had cheated first. It was exhausting, but I refused to back down. I had the truth on my side, and I had proof, screenshots, bank statements, witness testimonies. Still, her lawyer was good at spinning stories, making me look like the bad guy. I had to stay calm, stay focused, and fight back with everything I had. I knew if I let her get away with her lies, I'd be the one left broken. Meanwhile, I started seeing a therapist regularly. It was a way to process the anger and betrayal, but also to regain some sense of stability. I couldn't let her win by tearing me apart emotionally. I had to rebuild my confidence, my boundaries. I started going to the gym more seriously, took up new hobbies, and began to reconnect with friends I'd neglected during our marriage. It was hard. Every day was a battle to keep from drowning in bitterness and regret. But I knew I had to focus on healing, because if I didn't, Lisa would have won, even if she was out of my life physically. One night I came home after a long day in court, exhausted and emotionally drained. I sat in my living room, staring at the empty space where the house used to be. I remembered the nights we spent there, the plans we made, the future I'd envisioned. Now all that was gone. I felt a pang of grief, but also a strange sense of relief. That house was more of a prison than a home. It was a symbol of her lies and betrayals. In a way, losing it was a blessing, finally freeing me from the weight of her manipulations. I also started to see how her lies had affected me. I'd become paranoid, distrustful, constantly looking over my shoulder. It was like I'd been conditioned to expect betrayal at every turn. But I was determined to break free from that mindset. I needed to trust myself again, to rebuild my sense of security. That meant cutting off all contact with her, blocking her number, and refusing to let her control my emotions anymore. I knew she thrived on drama, on making me feel small, but I wasn't going to give her that power anymore. Looking back, I realized that this whole experience has taught me a lot about boundaries and self-respect. I learned that you can't fix someone who refuses to see their own flaws, that sometimes walking away is the best revenge, because it takes their power away. I also learned that people are capable of incredible deception, but if you stay vigilant and trust your instincts, you can survive even the worst betrayals. I don't regret standing up for myself, even if it hurt like hell. Because now I know what I'm worth and I refuse to let anyone, especially someone like Lisa, tear me down again. I've started to rebuild my finances and my life from scratch. I got a new job, moved into a new place, and began forming new relationships, people who actually care about me and don't see me as just a target for their lies. It's a slow process, but I'm getting there. Every day is a small victory. I still have nightmares sometimes about the betrayal, about what I lost, but I remind myself I'm still here. I survived, and I will keep surviving no matter what she throws my way. That's the only way to win in a game where the other side is so good at deception. You have to stay strong, stay vigilant, and never let their lies define you. The hardest part of all this was realizing how much I had trusted her for so long. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far, how I missed all the red flags, all the small lies that added up to this huge mountain of betrayal. I used to think I was a good judge of character, but Lisa proved me wrong. She was a master at deception, and I was just too blind to see it. I guess I wanted to believe in the best in her, in us, even when everything was falling apart. That's what kills you most, knowing you were played, used, and thrown aside like garbage. One thing I learned is that people like Lisa don't change. No matter how much she cried or begged, her actions proved otherwise. She kept lying, trying to manipulate the court and everyone around her. She'd spin stories about how she was the victim, how I was abusive, and how she was just trying to survive. But I knew the truth. I had the evidence, the witness testimonies, the bank statements. I knew she'd been lying for years, about the affair, the money, everything, and I refused to be her puppet anymore. I also realized that revenge isn't always about getting back at someone, but about reclaiming your life. For me, that meant cutting her out completely and moving on. I changed my number, blocked her on social media, and told everyone I trusted not to share any updates about her. I didn't want her to have any control over my life anymore. I refused to let her manipulate my emotions or keep me tethered to her chaos. The best revenge was living my life without her interference, without her lies poisoning everything. Despite the pain, I found some small comfort in the fact that I was finally free. Free from her lies, her stealing, her endless drama. I started focusing on myself, my health, my career, my passions. I even started dating again, cautiously, but with a new sense of self-awareness. I didn't want to fall for another liar or manipulator. I learned my lesson the hard way. Trust is earned, not given blindly. And I will never let anyone take advantage of me like that again. Looking back, I see how much I've grown. I've become stronger, more resilient. I've learned to listen to my gut, to recognize warning signs early, and to stand up for myself. I realize that I don't need someone who lies, steals, and manipulates to be happy. I can find happiness on my own, without the chaos, without the lies. I've come to accept that some relationships are just toxic from the start, and the best thing you can do is walk away before they destroy you completely. Now, I'm slowly rebuilding everything she tried to destroy. My trust in people, my sense of security, my hope for the future. It's not easy, and I still have days where I feel angry or sad. But most days, I feel a quiet strength growing inside me. I know I'll be okay. Maybe not perfect, but better, more aware, more cautious, more determined. And I hope that anyone reading this who's going through something similar realizes that they're not alone, that it's possible to survive even the deepest betrayals and come out stronger on the other side. Because at the end of the day, your happiness and your peace of mind are worth more than any lie or stolen dollar. Looking back now, I realize that the biggest lesson I learned is how crucial it is to trust yourself first. I was so caught up in the idea of making things work, of holding on to what we had, that I ignored the warning signs. But once everything fell apart, I saw clearly, Lisa was never really the person I thought she was. She was a master at deception, and I was just too blind to see it until it was almost too late. The betrayal cut deep, but it also woke me up. It forced me to what I want in life, what I deserve, and the kind of people I let into my world. Now, I know that no matter how convincing someone seems, actions always speak louder than words. I learned that loyalty and honesty are the foundations of any real relationship, and if they're missing, it's better to walk away than to keep digging your own grave. I also realized that revenge isn't about getting even, it's about reclaiming your life and dignity. I didn't want her to win by destroying me emotionally or financially. Instead, I chose to rebuild on my own terms, piece by piece, learning to trust again in myself in the process. Most importantly, I've come to understand that healing is a journey. It's not linear, and some days are harder than others. But each step I take away from her chaos is a step toward peace. I've started to find joy in the small things, my new job, my friends, my hobbies, and I refuse to let her lies define me anymore. I've learned that true strength comes from within, from knowing your worth and standing firm against those who try to tear you down. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, I want you to know you're not alone. Betrayal cuts deep, and trust is fragile, but you can survive it. You can come out stronger, wiser, and more aware. Don't ignore the red flags, and don't settle for less than you deserve. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. Because at the end of the day, your happiness, your integrity, and your peace are worth more than any lie, any stolen money, or any false promise. Keep fighting for yourself. Keep believing that better days are ahead. And never forget, you are stronger than the betrayal, and you will get through it.